Happy spring, class. Another beautiful day. Hope you're enjoying it and still doing your work. Uh, we're going to talk today. Both our projects this week are going to be related to stencils. So again, I've done this so we can use very similar elements, the different paints, the bubble wraps, all that type of thing, and then introduce the new component, which is the stencils. Some of you had actually used one or two already, but let's talk a little bit about stencils, a little bit about the history. We always think of everything as brand new and all this, but stencils, like wall coverings and wallpapers and all that, they go back hundreds of years, and actually you even could say thousands. The first actually known stencils that they actually found were in China, and it was at least 400 years ago. The ones that we also refer to is the Roman and the Greek communities. They did a lot of stenciling. You remember a lot of their, they did stenciling on the papyrus type of paper, and then also in their dwellings. They were big proponents of stenciling. Again, it was different chalks that they had used and that type of thing. So you're talking, good 1,000 plus some years, even more so, actually even 2,000 something. So stenciling has always been a favorite art of every culture. And of course, French had a big stenciling history, as well as the Brits. And us in the United States, remember when our founding fathers and mothers came over, pilgrims or even beforehand, they had a lot of stenciling. They made their own stencils, and they also designed decorated their homes with that. It was an easy, quick kind of fix. Remember, we always give due to the Pennsylvania Dutch in Amish country in Pennsylvania, all that whole area. They were very famous for their kind of geometric and shapes and the stencils. So we just continue on this tradition. It's a really fun one to do. And even in modern times now and everything, there was a big trend in the 1980s and the late beginning of 2000 also with stencils. Again, and we're going through another trend right now because with this lockdown and everything, we have a lot of DIY projects. And of course, back in the 80s, everything was all about stenciling, about wall murals. It was all about getting different textures on your walls. Again, a lot of these textures that we're doing here was a really big thing back in the 80s and the late 90s, early century, 2000. So it's funny, of course, as you know, even from your vantage point, things come back in and out of style. And I always say about every 20 to 30 years, at least every 20 years and stuff, just like you know yourself, a lot of the trends are what was happening in the 70s. Of course, now it's moved up to the 80s again. And I think that's why we're going to have a big increase in the stenciling, which we've seen already. Again, different trends and different types of design, especially like stencils. Of course, they've done a lot of new stenciling as far as even the making of them. So you've got a lot of digital stencils, all types of things. So we're going to play with that today. Now, again, it's going to be two parts. The first part, I'm just going to do typical stencils. A lot of you have done it, so I'm not going to spend tons of time on it because I think a lot of you are very familiar with it. But I am just going to show you some examples behind us. This one here on my right, this is actually a stenciled, it's like 1850s for its company Ali Jofa owns now, and it was a Japanese. again, the Japanese geishas and this kind of beautiful rock formations with the rippling waters, and it's a beautifully done drawing, and then of course they did a lot of these different block stencils. Okay, so again, limited amount of color, so this could be a really cool thing for you to kind of take this. The original company on this was called Cole and Sons, and they were actually they were a British company that, again, a lot of you are familiar with Lee Joffe. They probably in the last 20 years they've just bought a lot of different companies, smaller companies, and then put them under the Lee Joffe umbrella. Okay, it'd actually be a great place for you to try to get an internship or a job, because they really have, like I said, they have so many different divisions, and they do licensing for a lot of different decorators. Okay, now this is one on our right. Again, all laid out stencil format. You get your grid. It's really important to use your grid. Use that kind of formulation. Again, if you're doing something not as much this one as this one, everything involves the layout. So you've really got to be sure your lines, your linear and your vertical lines and your horizontal lines meet up really well. And then you start with partial stencil, and then what other areas that you want to fine tune. Of course, you would go back with maybe the ground color of the stencil. Okay, this is quite wonderful. It's they call it crease metallic. It's a metallic that has been crumpled and then it's actually in the paper itself, so it's really quite a nice effect. These also look great in the evening time, you know, with the lights low and the candles and all that. So metallic papers really can, you know, be if you any chance that you the remaining projects, any kind of metallic grounds, that'd be great to use on this. Okay, good. Another one, again, you can see this kind of formation in the same stencil outline of this one, only a different scale. You can see this is all pressed leaves in here. Okay, so we had done something similar as far as this part of the technique a couple weeks ago, and now you've come back with this and work a wonderful stencil in this. Okay, so if you look closely at this, there's little fern leaves, like maidenhair ferns in this. There's also these wonderful geometric stencils that you can work with this. So this is kind of where I'm going right now. I just completed my little background with egg cartons. I told you in the beginning of class a couple weeks ago, anything you see in the next few weeks, just keep it, because it could probably be you know, a really great background or something. So you can see already this has got like a formulation of dots going on. I also gave it a really light wash of water with a very light touch of white in it, okay? Now again, these stencils, actually this was from a book, but again, you can make up your own, cut your own. This is a heavy cardstock, so it's perfect for what we're doing. But again, a lot of times when you buy stencils, they're all almost like an acetate medium, which of course they would last a very long time. Of course, we're only going to do this for one session, so I am going to just I did it on this kind of cardstock, which works out great. Okay. A lot of times, again, with any of these projects, half the charm is in the kind of irregularity. So don't get too crazy if, you know, your line's out of whack or something like that. It just really, think more about the technique and how you're working it. Okay. So right now, this is pretty much dried. It's not quite as dry as I would like it to be, but I am going to put this down. Again, I've kind of created a checkerboard pattern So I'm gonna lay this guy down right here. And again, I also have pieces of this that I can put around if I want to. So anything I cut out, I have the pieces of. And I've used this before in other classes and stuff, but I usually use the brayer, but in the paint store, you can get these small rollers that are all foam. So again, it makes a nice additive for this. I'm actually going to do just a little. I don't usually do light tones, so I think for myself, I'm going to just do some lighter tones on this. And this is also easy, very easy technique to do just with a little sponge. So I'm going to use this kind of foam brayer just because I want a little of this texture that the brayer uses. And it's you know, it's really simple. It's just, this keeps a really nice light touch to it. Again, I would, as you know, I usually use much brighter tones, but like I encourage all you to do, definitely look at your portfolio. See what you kind of need, okay? I'm doing this one again. Now, you got to be very careful with this. I just moved it just slightly, so... and I'm just going back onto this plate that I did and giving it a touch. The brayer actually works really nice. It's like more uniform. But also, if you use a sponge, you can get a whole different technique in there also, okay? So I'm going to carry this on down here again, just to keep with this kind of pattern. Okay? And I'm just going to do one more. I'm just going to give it a squirt of the paint. Now remember, as we had stated, and I would definitely go ahead, always make sure, this is the one thing I always buy, is just this, you know, the white poster paint. It really helps you, especially a lot of you had used lighter tones and stuff. It really helps you when you're mixing your color. You don't want to keep buying this, you know, the Winsor Newton white, because it becomes very expensive, and this you can get for a relatively good price, and of course it really helps when you're doing lighter tones. Okay, so I'm putting this down again, just playing with the backgrounds. Notice also, class, on this, I made sure that I used a different paper this time. So I'm doing this wonderful, it's just regular, what we call paper bag paper. And it's just, be careful your workspace. I actually had that too close to the edge. But so you can see already I'm getting a nice background here. Again, very tonal, especially for what I do. But I'm going to let this all dry, and then when I come back, I will definitely put another layer on this. I'm not going, we've got other stencils that was from this cutout, so I'll use that. Now you can see, just for your own sake, if you do it on acetate or something, it'll be a little bit, this works great, since we're just doing a project or two, but again, that's why a lot of the stencils that you buy come on this kind of, almost like an acetate plastic, okay? Same thing with this. I'm going to let this dry, but I'll definitely be able to use again. But this is, you definitely can do this with a cardstock, okay? Okay, we're going to come back. I've got another technique that we're going to go through, and then we'll finish this guy and then go ahead with a new one, okay? Good.